Ethan adjusted the scope, his fingers moving with the precision of years of training. Each twist and turn was second nature, a dance he had performed countless times in the field. His breathing slow and steady, a rhythm that had been drilled into him during countless hours of practice. It was a technique that had saved his life more times than he could count. Years after leaving the Special Forces, the instincts remained. They were a part of him, woven into the very fabric of his being. Even in civilian clothes, he couldn't shake the habits of a soldier. The world sharpened through the lens, each detail magnified. Every leaf, every movement, every shadow was a potential clue, a piece of a larger puzzle. It was a skill that had kept him alive in the most dangerous situations. He wasn't aiming at a target today, though. He was bird watching. The same skills that had once been used to take lives were now being used to observe the beauty of nature. It was a far cry from his days as a soldier, but it brought a strange sense of peace. The quiet moments in nature were a balm for his troubled soul, a way to find some semblance of tranquility. The war had left its mark on Ethan, not just on his body, but on his mind and spirit. The scars were a constant reminder of the battles he had fought, both on the battlefield and within himself. Scars etched on his skin, each one telling a story of survival, of pain, of resilience. They were a map of his journey, a testament to the life he had lived. Memories burned into his mind, haunting him in the quiet moments. The faces of comrades lost, the sounds of battle, the weight of decisions made in the heat of the moment. He had tried to reintegrate into civilian life, but the transition was rough. The world he had returned to was so different from the one he had left, and he often felt like a stranger in his own land. The normalcy felt strange, the silence deafening. He missed the structure, the sense of purpose that the military had provided. In the quiet, his mind would wander back to the chaos of war. He missed the adrenaline rush, the camaraderie, the purpose. The bond he had shared with his fellow soldiers was something he had never found in civilian life. It was a connection forged in the crucible of combat. He had tried different jobs, but nothing stuck. Security guard, private investigator, even construction work. Each job was an attempt to find a new path, a new purpose, but none of them felt right. Nothing could replicate the intensity of his former life. The sense of mission, the clarity of purpose, the feeling of being part of something larger than himself. He was adrift, searching for an anchor in a world that felt foreign. The skills that had once made him a valuable asset now seemed out of place in the civilian world. That's when the call came, a call that would change everything, offering a new mission, a new purpose. It was a lifeline, a chance to use his skills once more, and perhaps find a way to reconcile his past with his present.
Ethan Hayes, I have a proposition for you, a job. It pays well, very well.
Intrigue warred with caution in Ethan's mind. He had learned to be wary of such offers. Ethan, who is this?
That's not important. What matters is this. Are you in or are you out?
Ethan hesitated. He could use the money, that much was certain, but something felt off. He decided to probe further. Ethan, tell me more about this job.
Let's just say it involves skills you're well acquainted with. Meet me tomorrow at the abandoned warehouse on Pier 17. Noon sharp. Come alone.
The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone, a knot of unease forming in his stomach. He had a bad feeling about this. The warehouse was eerily silent, shrouded in shadows. Ethan moved with practiced stealth, his senses on high alert. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. He spotted a lone figure standing in the center of the vast space. The man turned and Ethan's blood ran cold. It was Detective Miller, someone Ethan had crossed paths with during his PI days. Ethan. Miller, what's going on?
You're under arrest, Hayes.
Before Ethan could react, a SWAT team swarmed in, weapons drawn.
Put the gun down, Hayes. Hands where we can see them.
Ethan found himself staring down the barrels of a dozen guns. His mind raced, trying to process the situation. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was being framed. Ethan knew better than to resist. The weight of the situation pressed down on him like a heavy burden, and he could feel the eyes of his comrades on him, judging, questioning. He slowly raised his hands in surrender, his eyes never leaving Miller's smug face. Miller, the man who had orchestrated this entire charade, stood there with a look of triumph. Ethan's mind raced, trying to piece together how it had come to this. As they slapped handcuffs on him, a single thought consumed him. He needed to get to Beth. The cold metal around his wrists was a stark reminder of his current predicament, but his heart and mind were focused on one thing: reaching her. Beth was his one and only lifeline, a fellow soldier he had served with, a woman who had seen the depths of his soul. They had shared countless moments on the battlefield, moments that had solidified their bond. Beth was a combat medic, tough as nails, yet compassionate. She had a way of making even the most dire situations seem manageable, her presence a beacon of hope in the chaos of war. Their bond had been forged in the crucible of war, a shared experience that transcended words. They had faced death together, and in those moments they had found a connection that was unbreakable. He had always felt drawn to her, a flicker of something more than friendship in his chest. Every glance, every touch had been charged with an unspoken emotion, a longing that he had never dared to voice. But he had pushed those feelings down, burying them deep inside. The war had demanded their focus, and there had been no room for personal feelings. Yet those feelings had never truly gone away. Now, as they hauled him away, he clung to the hope that she would believe him, that she would help him clear his name. The fear of being misunderstood gnawed at him, but he knew that if anyone could see the truth, it was Beth. He had to find a way to contact her, to warn her that he was being set up. But how? The walls of the cell seemed to close in on him, and the reality of his situation became more daunting with each passing second. He needed a plan, a way to reach out to her without alerting his captors. The thought of her gave him strength, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. He would find a way. He had to, for both their sakes. With Beth's help, Ethan made a daring escape from police custody. The plan had been risky, but they had no other choice. Every second counted as they slipped through the cracks of the system, narrowly avoiding capture at every turn. They raced through the city streets, adrenaline pumping, the wail of sirens echoing behind them. The city was a blur of lights and shadows, each corner a potential trap. Ethan's hands gripped the wheel tightly, his knuckles white with tension, while Beth kept a lookout, her eyes darting to every possible escape route. They knew they couldn't outrun the law forever. The police were relentless, their numbers growing with each passing minute. The chase was a test of endurance, a battle of wits and nerves. Ethan and Beth exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. They had to stay ahead just a little longer. They needed to find out who was framing Ethan and why. The questions gnawed at them, fueling their determination. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Every clue, every piece of information was crucial. They had to be meticulous, leaving no stone unturned. Holed up in a safe house, they began piecing together the puzzle. The room was filled with maps, photographs, and notes, each one a fragment of the larger picture. They worked tirelessly, their minds racing to connect the dots. The stakes were high, and failure was not an option. The clues were scant, but they pointed to a shadowy figure from Ethan's past. Blake, a former comrade from their Special Forces days. Memories of their time together flooded back, a mix of camaraderie and betrayal. Blake had always been ambitious, but something had changed him, twisted his sense of loyalty. Blake had gone rogue, selling his skills to the highest bidder. He had become a mercenary, a man without a conscience. His actions were driven by greed and a thirst for power. Ethan knew that confronting Blake would be dangerous, but it was the only way to clear his name. He had a score to settle with Ethan, a grudge that ran deep. Their past was marred by conflict, a series of events that had led to this moment. Blake's hatred was palpable, a dark force that threatened to consume them both. Ethan steeled himself, ready for the inevitable confrontation. Ethan and Beth knew they were walking into a lion's den, but they had no other choice. The building loomed ahead, a fortress of danger and deceit. They moved cautiously, every step calculated. The air was thick with tension, the silence broken only by their hushed whispers. They had to confront Blake, expose his treachery, and clear Ethan's name. The confrontation was inevitable, a clash of wills and destinies. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, his resolve unwavering. This was their chance to set things right, to bring justice to a world shrouded in darkness. They were running out of time. The clock was ticking, each second a reminder of the urgency of their mission. They had to act quickly, decisively. The fate of their future hung in the balance, and there was no room for error. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next. Following a trail of breadcrumbs, Ethan and Beth tracked Blake to an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of the city. The place was a labyrinth of steel and concrete, shadows dancing in the dim light filtering through grimy windows. They moved with caution, their senses on high alert.
"This is it, Beth. This is where we end this," Ethan whispered, checking the magazine of his pistol. "Be careful, Ethan. Blake is playing for keeps."
As if on cue, the silence was shattered by the deafening roar of gunfire. Ethan and Beth hit the deck, bullets whizzing past them. They were walking into a trap. A tense firefight erupted, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder. Ethan and Beth returned fire, their movements precise, their training taking over. They were outmatched and outgunned, but they fought with the ferocity of cornered animals. Ethan, using his sniper skills, provided cover fire, while Beth, with her combat medic training, expertly navigated the treacherous environment. They moved as one, their trust in each other absolute. They finally cornered Blake, his face contorted in a mixture of rage and desperation.
"It's over, Blake. You're finished."
You think you've won, Hayes? You've already lost everything.
But Ethan could see the fear in Blake's eyes. He had him right where he wanted him. The police arrived, sirens wailing, lights flashing. Blake's game was up.